Go ahead.
Sorry, I used to always do this in my last job, so, yeah, I'm gonna put it in Google Docs. Is it two things you can write?
I've been in the
I think I have, I don't know if I can make accountability.
only the main street, the characters and all that.
If that isn't really before, you have to pay more.
You work at UNS?
Jim.
You can take advantage of these two chairs as well.
Welcome everybody to the Lee Select Board meeting, Monday, April 13th. So nice to see a lot of people here. In fact, this is the first time in a long time I've seen this many people. There must be something on your mind. I wanted to find out a little bit. So first thing is public comment. However, only public comment has nothing to do with the budget first. And then we'll go into a hearing and then we'll go through the traditional procedure. So anybody would like to make a public comment that has nothing to do with the budget? Or forever hold your,
Good breakfast yesterday.
very good. I appreciate it. The breakfast was very good. I do appreciate it. Well, thank you very much. And I'll open up the budget public hearing in preparation for a special meeting. Well, as you know, the budget did not pass. I guess maybe that's why you're here at this point, to find out maybe why it did not pass, or to make an offer of, to get it passed, or to modify it at this point. So we're here to listen, so I'm gonna open up the podium. Anybody would like to speak, raise their hand. You've identified, state your name and your address, and you have about 3 minutes. Go for it.
Do you want me to go through the slides, Michelle?
I might not be about it. I might answer questions.
All right, modification, we're gonna have the town administrator go through a few slides to set the stage.
The opening slide pretty much gives you an idea of where we're at and reiterates what the chairman just said. Just to make it clear to everybody here, this is a three-part process. The budget hearing tonight is for the community to let the Board of Selectmen select people, know what you feel about the budget, give them some idea about decreases, increases, whether you really want to stick with the default. The next phase of this will be on May 9th. That's a Saturday. This mimics the original election process. There will be a deliberative session. For lack of a better term, that's your money session. That's where you have the ability as voters to make changes to the budget if you disagree with the select board. And that will be followed on June 9th by another election, where you can cast your votes as to whether to accept the revised budget, or if that fails, we go to the default budget. Just to give you an idea of what's been cut to date, and this is a combination of department head recommendations, the select board looking at the department head recommendations, making some cuts of their own. So far, tentative cuts are all the health and social service agencies, recreation funding, the library is seeing some cuts to books and materials, highway paving maintenance. This is separate from the highway paving warrant article that did pass. Commissions, Conservation Commission funding, energy, sustainability, technology, the league readers, highway engineering money, fire training funding, the police department accreditation funding, building maintenance funding, conferences, printing. I've got the town report in parentheses there. That would be a limited number of town reports. We are still obligated to print hard copies, but that's a significant expense. And some overtime from the budget as well. Overtime has to be approached with sort of a fine-tooth comb, because obviously fire, police, and plowing overtime is probably different than overtime in the town clerk's office, that type of thing. So that's what the board has looked at to date. One more slide here. Estimated tax impacts versus actual tax rate. And I just want to give a little history. The estimated tax rates that we print on the warrants do not typically bear a lot of resemblance to reality. In 2025, the estimated tax rate was 642. The actual rate came in at 547. I think it was actually 545. The year before, the estimated tax rate was 619. The actual rate came in at 524. So those estimated tax rates that are on the warrants are a best guess, using what we have for revenue numbers and what we know the valuation of the town is. It's typically a best guess that is high. So I just want to present this. The other key factor here is we are in a revaluation year. When you do a revaluation, your tax bill might not necessarily go down, but the tax rate will go down. I don't believe anyone's valuations have decreased significantly in the last 5 years, and this is our cyclical 5-year revaluation. So if values go up in town, you're quite likely to see a markedly different lower tax rate than the estimated rate that we have to put on the warrants. I just wanted to make that clear to folks. And that's just sort of a jumping off point. At this point, if the board wants to take comments, or I can present the working budget and go through it line by line.
I think we'll take comments at this point, but of the savings that we cut so far, how much?
So the initial savings that you had worked on totaled $142,614, and that brought the originally requested budget from $6,085,545 down to $5,942,930. The other comment I would make is if you look at that $399,000 difference I showed between the default budget and the operating budget, a different board a year and a half, 2 years ago, took paving and the cost of living adjustments for the employees out of the operating budget and made them warrant articles. That was about $400,000. So consequently, when we get to this point and look back at the default, that becomes the default operating budget. If those two items hadn't been warrant articles, we would probably be sitting up here saying we need to find $69,000 to $71,000. But because of that change in the budget, it created a deficit of $400,000.
Okay, floor, the board is ready to, any comments from the public at this time? Please.
You have to go on the podium, the whole name,
Name,
address.
address.
Yeah, name, address.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Nazari McLean. I live at 51 Happy Mill Road. And I just have a question. What's the Health and Human Services? What are those things?
Those are agencies that provide service in town that we don't have in town. I believe there are 10 or 11 agencies that we support. That has included things like drug treatment facilities for emergency placement of someone having a situation, domestic abuse. There are shelters that we use. Those shelters won't necessarily go away. The numbers we put in the budget are based on reports from each of those agencies that come to the budget committee and the select board. And you give the numbers of the residents that they've helped in the past year and ask for a donation based on what they feel the usage in Lee is.
So if that gets cut, what happens?
Well, I don't believe that we would be turned away from any of those facilities.
Don't believe or don't know?
I don't know for certain. In most cases, organizations like that do not turn people away based on whether your town funded their agency or not.
So, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but that sounds like a really important service. Can you, I guess, I don't know who made the decision to cut it, but can you explain why you cut it?
Let me take a crack at this. Like anything else, we have to look at all aspects of the budget, and we can go through it line by line so everybody can see what's going on. We'll have, looking at areas which are, I don't want to say the easy cut, everything's hard to cut no matter what. But if we don't start cutting somewhere, we'll be looking at police, we'll be looking at fire, we'll be looking at other areas. So the safety is concerned, which is extremely important. Transfer station operation is important. So there's a lot of other areas that can be cut. A lot of those are labor cuts to the town itself. And that makes a difference when services cannot be provided. I hate to say it, but these are areas where even if we do cut the funds to Health and Human Services, those agencies will continue. They do get donations, and they do get aid from other areas as well.
Andy, do you have the budget? Because it's on page 9. We can just show it's what we're talking about.
If I could just add, that question is precisely why we decided to go through this process. Because when the warrant article failed, it was immediately clear that it was gonna be difficult to make that magnitude of cut from the proposed budget without some pain. So we wanted to make sure that as many people as possible from the town were able to give our input, because everything's gonna be like that.
These are
No,
the
I
agencies.
get that cuts are tough, but those are the services that are being cut in New Hampshire by the state and the federal government. And, I mean, if you can guarantee that anybody who needs those services still gets them, okay, I have no problem with it. But if that's not the case, then I kind of do.
I understand, and these are suggestions at this point?
Yeah.
This is not
I'm not
permanent.
trying to give you a hard time.
So it's the opportunity to hear from the people of Lee, what they want and what they can sustain, I guess, at this point.
You can give us a hard time if you want.
I can, yeah.
Only
Looking
you.
at my card.
Please.
Hello, my name is Stacy Waits, and I live at 274 Levo Road. Andy, would you mind going back to that slide about what's getting cut so far?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of them, but that is the health agencies that are.
She means the summary slide.
Summary
Oh.
slide.
Yes. 1 second.
Thank you. So this is the first time I'm seeing this slide. Thanks for showing it. I think that, you know, what I'm seeing, the impression that I get is that we are kind of nickeling and diming the good volunteers that we have in this community who are running those committees, running those programs. One more slide.
Let's go here.
But I think that the real thing that we need to focus on is large dollar reductions that we can accomplish. And I think that that probably comes with headcount. I mean, headcount is the single largest expense that this town has in our operating budget. And it's not just the salary that somebody gets, it's also the benefits that they receive, it's the retirement funding that we have to provide on their behalf. I know that there have been several times in the past where we have agreed to increase our headcount despite objection from the community. And I see that this is just coming back to, you know, that poor decision that we may have made years past to continue to increase that headcount. So that would be my strong suggestion, is that the department heads and the select board consider where we can reduce headcount, because how many of these fundings could we continue to have if we reduced just one headcount from the town? I'd be interested in knowing that figure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Art Keeler.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. Most, or maybe all, of the line items that were reduced to $1, meaning that they're still in the budget, and you can move money to them if you have that money available. Could you talk about that, whether or not that's planned?
Thank you. Sir.
Tom Dolan, 11 Michael Lane, Lee. Is there any possibility or potential for the original budget to be included in the vote that takes place as opposed to the revised budget? In other words, is there a chance to vote on the original budget again?
That would depend on two things. The select board could put the original budget forward and maybe revise it by $1 or something like that and say, here's the revised budget we're presenting, or a citizen could certainly do that at deliberative session if they had enough support from the board.
Okay. Is there any indication, or maybe the calculations haven't been done yet, in terms of what the original estimated tax rate for the original budget would be versus the estimated rate for the revised budget or the potentially revised budget?
Yeah. I do have those numbers. Give me just 1 second. Yeah, the estimated default budget tax rate impact totaled at $4.94. The select board requested budget had a tax rate impact of $5.47, and the potential revised budget with the $142,000 cut has a tax rate of a projected tax rate of $5.28.
Wow. Okay.
So.
All right.
And Andy, can you put that in terms of the increase? Can you put that in terms of the increase that each of those would represent? Obviously, the default is an increase of 0.
Yeah, and the select board requested you could take the difference between 547 and 494.
50 cents.
I have a calculator.
34 cents.
34 John, is that 34 cents for the revised budget?
That's the 528, which is the revised budget, versus the default of 494.
What percent is that, John?
It's only 30 cents.
I mean, it just seems that
34 cents.
we're talking about a relatively small amount of money when compared with the aspect that some people are gonna do without, or some aspects of the town are not going to be met or provided with respect to the revised budget. And yet, the difference between the revised and the original seemed, I mean, with respect to what all of us are currently paying, it just doesn't seem to me to be an awful lot of dough. So, again, in summary, if there's enough support at the deliberative session, the original budget could be included in the ultimate warrant?
It can't be offered, there can't be a series of choices, but you could offer the original budget as the warrant going forward.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
My name is Charlie McLean, 51 Harvey Mill Road. My comment is more about the budget approval process than the budget itself. Been to a lot of both deliberative sessions and the old town meetings going back years. And for most of those years, when the budget was presented and when warrant articles were presented, somebody, usually the head of a department, came to the podium and explained the rationale behind the request pretty thoroughly, pretty exhaustively. And most of those warrant articles and all budgets passed. In the last couple of years, and I've made this comment at the deliberative sessions, you walk in, somebody walks forward, and they basically paraphrase the warrant article and the budget request, and that's it. And then open it up for comment. 2 or 3 people are allowed to offer comments, and the second or third one says, call the question, and that's the end of the discussion. It seems to me that if you want the budget approved, that a more thorough explanation of the rationale for the various budget amendments would get you more votes. That's my take.
Thank you for your comments, appreciate it.
Casper, 16 Elder Road. I am thrilled to see this room full. I am sorry if it's because you're angry, but you guys, we have to participate in this process. As a former select person, I would kill to have a room like this. I'm so glad to see you here. The time to come is when we're talking about the budget before the election, when these decisions are being made, and I'm so glad you're here tonight, but I hope in the future you can join us, because these rooms are empty when these people are up here working so hard to make these budgets, and it would be great to see you. So please, an official invitation, please come. I do want to speak very specifically to the Health and Social Services Agency funding. I am the chair of Community Action Partnership of Stratford County. I understand how desperately we need the funds from each community. We pay a welfare person who is shared amongst so many towns, a very small amount of money, and the thing she tells everyone is, we can't really do anything for you, call CAP. And CAP can't do the work we need to do to make sure people have their needs met if there's no funding. They have to have funding from the towns to help support the grant funding that they get. So if someone were to lose a job and have a hard time getting food, or they lost an apartment, or they had trouble with a mortgage payment, these things are really, really vital to help someone get by before they start spiraling into worsening situations, which are honestly much more expensive for everyone. So please do not cut those. We have gone and fine-tooth combed those numbers so hard to give as little as possible as a community, but that is the only safety net we have left, and I'm very worried about losing it. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Colin Bickler, 3 Spencer Lane. First, just want to say thank you, Andy. for all of your incredible transparency and responsiveness this week and last week. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer my emails. I just wanted to ask, how did we get to the point where we had this confusing wording that kind of led to the situation that we're in now, and how are we gonna make sure we don't end up there again?
In
Prescribed by
regard,
the state.
in regard to the tax rate impact,
Yeah.
do you mind, John, if I?
Please.
One of the things that I am likely to recommend to the board, there's a very specific formula for calculating your estimated tax rate impact. You have a couple of options. You can present the total estimated tax rate impact, or you can do it per $1,000 valuation and show the difference between the default and the actual. I know, for example, Nottingham uses the per $1,000 valuation on their warrant. I found a couple of other towns that have done that as well, and I think that might make it more clear. I was hesitant to do it this evening because it also, even though it's not really less, it appears to be a much smaller number. And where we had presented it in this format at the original election, I think it's important that we stay with the same format and the same formula for the special meeting. But certainly in future years, we could use the per thousand valuation estimate broken down.
And is that what we used to use in the past, as first year were changes, or?
No,
No.
this is the standard
Okay.
formula for figuring the estimated tax rate impact.
Okay, so I just saw the original announcement talked about, there was a lot of confusion, that is part of why we're here today. So I'm just trying to understand, how do we end up with confusion this year and not in years past?
I'm not sure. We have published the estimated tax rate impact for the past, I believe it's 2 years.
Just three.
3, actually.
There you go.
Thank you, John. And trying to be transparent and trying to educate people. Actually, the chairman of the trustees of the trust fund, Mr. Tappan, developed a very nice spreadsheet that shows exactly what goes into those calculations and how it works. That's in the voter's guide, and we send it to every household and hope that people take some time to look at it. But
Great, thank you.
Please.
I'm John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. The tax rate figure that is shown is tax rate per $100,000 evaluation. The reason that past estimates have had such an error is the inability to predict what the revenue is going to be. Other than the budget, all those others depend only on what the tax base is going to be. And the tax base for the past since revaluation, tax base has not increased by even as much as 1% per year. So all those other figures are very well known. The problem is that in calculating the tax rate for the budget, that's the only warrant article where you cannot vote for zero. You're always voting for either the proposed amount or the default. And the default uses up all of the revenue. The default takes about twice the amount of revenue. So in calculating the tax impact for the budget, the big errors come from the prediction of what is the revenue going to be over 6 to 18 months from now. And that's something that takes a lot of work, and the state sometimes varies things quite a bit.
And just to clarify too, when I talked about how other towns illustrate the valuation per thousand and the estimated tax rate impact per thousand, it's all calculated per thousand. Some other towns show the difference between the previous year's budget and the presented budget, which instead of showing the whole rate is a much smaller amount.
Sure.
Scott Morrow, 4 Federal Hill Lane. been cut in the revised proposed budget? Number one, Health and Social Service Agency funding. I don't know how many of you know, but in 2015, September 19th, I lost my son to a fentanyl overdose. Okay, it's very hard to get help. So cutting that is not okay with me. But I understand that cuts need to be made. I mean, let's all be real. Who here doesn't want to raise? Huh? Raise your hand if you don't want to raise this year. If you're willing to keep your current income. Yeah, we all want to raise. I get it. I dig it. But the health and social services really weighs heavy on me. Another question I have is the overtime. So the overtime is being cut for everybody, but DPW, police and fire.
Right now, and this is not a final estimated budget, some overtime has been cut. The budget worksheet shows very minimal cuts. There are other cuts that can be made that the board has expressed interest in looking at. And the numbers, give me a second. PD and the fire department are obviously the highest overtime numbers in the budget.
Take a lot to do.
Yep, if you excluded the police department and the fire department, there's $18,175 of overtime left in the budget. 10,000 of that is highway, 2,500 of it is transfer station, and the rest is sprinkled among other hourly employees in the various departments.
Okay, all right. Okay, that makes, that's a little bit more understanding for me. Also, the rec funding being cut kind of sucks, but we all gotta make cuts, so I get it. But, yeah, that's two things I wanted to bring up.
Can I just offer a point of clarification? We can't be talking about the cuts as though they've been made, right? It's 100, we need to make it 100% clear, excuse me. These are cuts that Andy and the department heads have identified, but they're not final. Nothing's final.
Proposed,
Proposed.
No,
No, I'm not, I just want to make that.
No, proposed.
And that's why I'm glad there's so many people here so the board can hear what the people feel is important. I mean, everything is important, but obviously it's, none of these things are in cement at this time.
Is the board gonna actually listen to any of it?
Of course, the board always listens. No, absolutely.
Okay.
But I do hear, I mean, I pay taxes as well in my home, and it's gone up, absolutely. Please.
Dawn Jeans, 43 North River Road. This appears to be the low-hanging fruit. It was kind of easy, but was there a discussion about something that was across the board, 5% or something like that, so that everybody has a little bit of an impact versus just the more social needs?
Put it plainly, this is the initiation of the process. We just started talking about this, and that is a consideration. But you're right, these were ones that we could easily pull down after talking to the department heads and also our discussion itself. But we'll definitely take some of these things under consideration. There was a hand, please.
My name is Gail Kinberg. I live at 12 Lee Hill Road. So a comment first, and then I have a question about process. My comment is, assuming that we didn't know what we were voting for, is insulting. Most of us, I'm pretty sure, knew what we were voting for, because we're being squeezed. We don't seem to have much input into the school budget, and I am fully aware of where the bulk of our taxes go. But none of us have, a lot of us don't get raises or minimum raises, and a lot of us are retired. So I'm pretty sure we knew what we were voting for when we said no. My question is about process. So if this whole process goes forward, the next time we vote down a budget, are you gonna do it again? Next year, if we vote down the down budget again, are we gonna have to come back for a second round of voting because you didn't like what we voted for?
I guess that's a decision of the board.
It's a pretty bad precedent. It's very discouraging. We had the process, we had, all the informational meetings, we got the information in the mail, we had the right to go over or not go over it, to go to the public discussion, whether we did or not, that was our choice. And then we voted, not everybody in the town, I know, the percentage is not high, but people voted, and now we have to revisit that vote. It doesn't seem just.
I just say, this is not a decision we made lightly. We discussed this at length. As I said earlier, we, every dollar in the budget is associated with a service that somebody wants,
I know.
right? And there just wasn't a ton of fat, right? We went through the process, Andy and the department heads went through the process, they identified, as Don said, the low-hanging fruit, $142,000. Past that, folks have brought up a few ideas, we didn't think, given this was the first time that the budget has failed, as far back as we have records, and I myself am new to the board,
I'm aware of that.
what we had to do was open it up to discussion for the town to see what people were willing to do without. We're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. We need to understand, well, are you willing to, go without, the health services funding? Are you willing to go without X? Right, so that's really what we're trying to ascertain at this meeting. We're not doing it to try and increase the process or anything like that. We needed to hear from the town before we made decisions.
So you're saying that this meeting is to decide what people are comfortable with having you revise in the budget? I thought this was about developing a new budget and having a new vote on a new budget.
The process, yeah, we will have an election on the new budget, but we have this hearing and then we have the deliberative session during which people from the town will be able to offer the cuts that they prefer.
So it's not about living with the budget that the people who voted spoke about. We said we didn't want the proposed budget, we said we wanted the default budget.
And we're not advocating for the proposed budget.
You're also not advocating for the budget as it was approved.
That's because we're not advocating, we're listening.
I must be missing something, but maybe it's not just
I don't
me.
think so.
Sir, bring it back.
Christopher Marcy, 56 Campground Road. I agree with the previous speaker. I think this meeting is ethically concerning. People have voted. The town residents clearly preferred the default budget against the operating budget. In the warrant article, there was a period at the end of the sentence. It didn't say, if it fails, we'll revise and revisit this. Because what this does, it sets up a precedent for the winners of the previous vote to have to win twice in a row. And now, that's what's gonna carry forward. If the budget won, if the operating budget had passed, and I came to you and I said, here's an RSA that we can lower this, will we have a meeting? No, because that would violate democratic norms. And I know that people are worried about losing services that they need, and that's scary. But we're a town and we can rely on each other, can't we? Ask your neighbor for help. Give your neighbors help when they need it. We don't need town officials taking care of us. And I would say to the town officials, please appreciate what you've been given and make do with what you have. Embody New England norms.
Thank you for your comment. There's a hand over here. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wendy Fogg, 179 Wednesday Hill Road. Again, I want to agree with Gail, wherever you are. When I heard about this meeting, I was absolutely astonished, pissed, and insulted. And I said to myself the same thing that Gail said. How dare you insult my intelligence with the idea that I didn't know what I was reading? How many opportunities have we all had, not just us, but everybody in town who's not here? How many opportunities have we had to attend meetings? And we're encouraged to attend meetings. And most of the time, I have felt pretty welcome in the rare, and will say in the rare times that I've done that. But that's our civic duty and right to be informed. When I raised my kids, there was a rule in our house. No means no. It doesn't mean maybe, it doesn't mean no unless you can convince me otherwise. No is no is no. And we first started having all these difficulties, and I've been in town 47 years. And we started having these difficulties way back when I lived on the other side of the town line. And the school district started doing all this stuff that they're so good at. And I'm not against education, please, but started with all the, oh, well, you know, they voted down our budget, so we're gonna change a few things and we're gonna vote again until we get what we want. The same thing has evolved. And maybe this has been part of state law for a long time. Doesn't make it right, folks. Does not make it right. We said no. And if we have to go back and look at what we said no to and go, ooh, kind of wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
The horse is out of the barn. You don't pull on the dog's leash after it's hit by the car. We said no. It needs to be no. And next time, people who felt like they didn't understand what was written and what was offered need to be more diligent, more careful, and more willing to ask questions before the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please.
More questions. My name is Susan Mattioni, 261 New Falls. The default budget, as I understood, was what we have. Is that not the case?
It's the prior year.
Right, so it would, with increases on what you have.
Right, and there were no particular increases that were added into the default budget this year.
Should there have been?
Not that I'm aware
Okay,
of.
okay, because that's, as a voter, that's what I look at, and I think the articles for the school plus yours, I think that's the effect of what you got. It's just a lot of spending. So that's, I think that's where mindset sometimes goes, is that we'll just keep it the way it is. We'll go with default. So this is definitely not that, I guess, if we're cutting. And then, so if we do this special election, does that then cost money?
Yes, I've had a couple of people have questioned me about the cost of the special election. I saw some social media posts that said it was tens of thousands of dollars. It is not insignificant, but it is not $10,000. My best estimate was a little over $5,300 as worst case scenario. That would be if all election officials, that sort of thing, took submitted their time and took paychecks. They do not all do that. There are some obvious requirements that we have to meet. We have to advertise in a local newspaper. You still have to advertise in a print newspaper. Notice of your deliberative session and the warrant. We do have election officials and I'd say volunteers. They volunteer to do it, but they are paid. And that would be a worst case scenario, is about $5,300 total, and that would be for the deliberative and the election. The biggest chunk of that is the voting machines. You have to certify and program them prior to the election.
Jim Hasper, 16 Elder Drive. Just a point of clarification. My understanding in this meeting is that we as a town have said no to the budget, and you as a select board said, we really want to know what you want us to cut, and we care about what you care about, and it's important to us. And so I don't think I understand the idea I've missed something, but I thought that what we're doing here is saying what we feel like you're spending too much on and where we can really cut the budget. Otherwise, you could just take the new default budget, go with it, cut whatever you want, and we have no say. So I just want to thank you personally for holding this meeting, so we do have a say.
Thank you, appreciate it. Ann, yes?
Wendy Fogg, 179 Wednesday Road, just a quick addition. I think it's very interesting, and I won't just point fingers at all of you, but whenever these kinds of things happen and money needs to be cut, it seems to always go, let's go for the juggler. What's gonna really hit people the hardest? Health and social service, rec, right? Don't mess with those things. But folks, couldn't we stand a few bumpy roads? You know, couldn't we just be a little patient with some other things? I know the League Readers Committee has already lost their funding. So, you know, so that, nothing was said about that. There are just so many other places where little bits could be taken without having to attack the thing that you know is gonna hit people right in their hearts. And try to convince us to do something that we know we don't wanna do. Because I have an 84-year-old husband. If I need to call 911, I hope they'll come. But I don't think if Wednesday Hill Road is bumpy, it will prevent that from happening. So, you know, I love everybody on the town crews and all of that, and we all work hard. But I said to my crew, hey girls, we're all women at Misty Meadows, I said, you know, we can all, you can all, not me, I'm not getting a raise, but you can all have a small raise this year. Or we could do drum circles, and we could do Reiki shares, and we could give that money to the Wilkinson Food Pantry. Or you can have a raise, what would you like to do? Guess what they chose? It wasn't a raise.
Well, to the point of paving, we did suggest cutting it from 50,000 to 47 in the reduced budget. The paving warrant article that voted yes, we can't touch that money for anything other than paving. So all the warrant articles that passed, which they all did, money-wise, we can't just decide that we're gonna take the 200,000 you guys passed for paving and move it someplace else. Because it was a warrant article, we can't touch it for anything else. However, the paving in the budget, that's the general budget, has been sliced significantly. So where else are you willing to cut, I guess is the question.
It's okay.
Sorry, Bones, sorry.
Sasha, 5 Cartland Road. Where does it say what the default budget is and what your proposed revised budget is? What line is that?
So,
the default budget is not a line on the budget worksheet. It is calculated separately on the tax portal through the Department of Revenue, and it gives me block numbers, not a broken out detail. It doesn't translate really well at all to the budget worksheet that we use.
So-
That's why I can give you the numbers here.
it's a bottom line budget. So they give us, this is how much you spent last fiscal year, here are contracts that you're obligated to pay more on, this is your default budget.
And those are the numbers there.
We can move that money anywhere. It's also on the website too.
So we keep saying like, oh, we need input about what to cut. Would folks like to, real quick, have Andy go through like department by department, so we can get a sense of kind of what we're spending money on now, what was proposed and so forth? Raise your hand if you. Okay. That was a breach of order, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a breach of order. That's okay.
Sorry, I'm new. What was I supposed to do now?
You're supposed to look this way.
Okay.
Would you like us to do that?
All right. Yeah, I want to sense, I mean, like, I don't want to be up here saying like, oh, what do you want to do? And then people have no sense of it.
Exactly, but I want to get back to the point that Rebecca has made, is that, you know, once the budget is there, we can move things around. Put it plainly, if there is strong feelings for the, you know, Health and Human Services, that means we'll have to take it from someplace else to fill that obligation if we go that way. So we do have privilege in those areas. But yes, when we go through the budget a little bit, we won't spend a lot of time on it because there's a lot of budget, at least point out the high points. And you can see where some of the opportunity is and where maybe there's no opportunity.
Why my mouse is suddenly stopped working?
Because you cut the budget.
It is a
Sorry.
fairly old laptop.
It just came out.
No, but it's fine.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
It's on the bottom. Slightly further over.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you want to explain these columns before you start in on them?
Sure. These columns can be a little bit tricky. A couple of details about them. You've got the fiscal year 25 actual budget where we ended up with spending. The fiscal year 26 budget is the budget we're in right now. And the fiscal year 26 to date budget, what we've spent as of the end of March. The department fiscal year 27 column is what the departments requested going into the budget process. The select board fiscal year 27 budget is what the select board decided to approve and request in this last budget cycle. A couple of nuances to this budget. The 26 budget shows any of the salary items you see here did not include a COLA that was added after the vote. The COLA was added after the vote, and I should be clear, cost of living adjustment for employee wages. That was added after the vote because it was a separate warrant article that overwhelmingly passed last year. The department, the employee lines in the department head request fiscal year 27 budget are what employees are actually being paid right now. The select board's approved budget included a 2.5% cost of living adjustment that was not a warrant article that was built into those budget lines in the requested budget. And the board looked at those, came up with a 2.5 COLA by looking at what the federal government was going to use for COLA with regard to Social Security. They looked at the Northeastern small town cost of living projections, the CIP. CPI, not CIP, I get those two mixed up. And that was actually a little lower than the CPI, but that's where that number came from. It wasn't just grabbed out of the air.
Can we define CPI?
Can you
Consumer Price Index?
The Consumer Price Index.
It's how they calculate inflation.
Yep, and it's broken down, there's a national CPI, the feds break it down in a series, and there are a number of CPIs that you can use. We use the standard federal one, which is broken down by region and further broken down by the size of your municipality in that economic region.
I heard some murmuring. Our fiscal year ends the end of June. So the fact that the fiscal year 26 to date is like 3/4 is because we're 3/4 of the way through the year.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion about that, and it makes it very challenging in budget time too, because if you are estimating for a fiscal year budget, the budget process in a town like Lee's starts in September. In September, you're trying to guess what costs might be and what might be happening the next July 1st. And things like fuel, electricity, particularly in New Hampshire, can change radically over a 9-month period.
Quick question, what's the ABC called? ABC FY 27.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the advisory budget committee.
All right,
And
thank
that's
you.
that's a column that is included in our budget worksheet, and those were their numbers for this year that they recommended to the select board. The select board came down a little bit from what the ABC had actually recommended.
And then the highlighted numbers in the select board column are the currently proposed cuts to the original.
Right. So, general government and executive, that is folks like myself, the select board, fairly straightforward. The conference line in there is there, so if the select board needs to go to a New Hampshire Municipal Association conference, that sort of thing, there's a little bit of money. There's actually not enough money to pay for one of the municipal association's conferences right now. Moving down, election registration.
I did want to talk about the overtime for this BOS overtime. What is that and what are we using it for?
BOS overtime, I am, there are 2 employees in this department, myself and the assistant and town administrator. I am a salaried employee, so I'm not eligible for overtime, regardless of how long the select board wants me to do things. The assistant is indeed a hourly employee and is entitled to overtime. That money in the past has been used for events like this, meetings in the evening. Just to give you a scenario, weekend events. Recently, the Boston Cane presentation happened on a Sunday. The assistant covered that. It typically goes to meetings, though. Budget meetings, select board meetings, attendance at deliberative session, and it's not just attendance, it's there to keep records, to keep minutes.
So I guess I was wondering, because I know we close the town office on Fridays, that we have those extra hours. Are those hours that we are closing early not being distributed to those meetings?
No, because we are open late on Mondays, the town offices are open until 6 o'clock every Monday. That offsets the closing at 12:30 on Friday.
Is there a possibility of other time that the administrative assistant can take off so that she can do those meetings that you need her for and then not using overtime?
Well, I'm sure that's what will happen if the overtime is removed, because I doubt the assistant will be
Yes, I know it's more hours.
interested in putting in hours for nothing, but.
No, I just, like, we might need to put that. We have someone in the audience with a comment. Comments right now.
Maybe I missed it, but why is it for like
You have to come to the microphone, otherwise it doesn't get recorded in the minutes.
Tom
Thank
Blake
you.
Butler, for, maybe I missed it, but Department FY 27 for the 2 top lands there, why is that lower than what the select board went with?
The 96.
Yep.
So that was their current salary.
That's
and then the select
current
board
salary.
2.5 COLA.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep, I'm sorry. Dropping down, election registration and vital statistics. You can see what this involves, supervisors of the checklist, moderator, town meeting expenses. I heard some comments, read some comments on social media about food. I would tell you that the meals money, and this is really the primary food money in the budget, that goes to provide lunches for the people who work from 7 in the morning on election day until whatever time the votes get counted, and also, it's basically elections.
And this number changes every year depending on the number of elections. So this is not something you can compare year to year, it's per election. So depending on how many elections we have next fiscal year, this number looks very different from previous years.
Town clerk, tax collector, back to that. Expenses here have been all over the place because we've had some turmoil. We're in a fine place now and steady moving forward, but we've had a couple of town clerks. When Linda Reinhold, longtime town clerk, retired, we had 2 replacements in a row that resulted in us bringing Linda back. We had new people come in, which resulted in us keeping the retired town clerk on staff to train. There's an incredible amount of training that goes into being a town clerk, and that's why as you track these expenses, they might not make sense to you in the past particularly. You've got someone, John, in the back.
Please.
I just, Elizabeth Copley, I live on 12 Clement Way, right behind you. What you just said made me get up because, can you repeat that last sentence you just did?
Probably not, but I was listening to you. You can remind me of what I just
Well,
said?
you were talking about the town clerk.
Right.
We had a great conversation, not even 3 months ago.
Hmm?
You know why she came back?
Yep.
You? Why?
Well, in part because I called her on the phone and asked her a number of times.
Well, you needed her help.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, that's why she came back.
She came back and told me personally, it's because she can't afford to keep her house. She built too big of a house. So why is it so difficult to just, like Wendy said, just leave the budget the way it was? A lot of people can do without. A lot of people can do the voting and bring a potluck supper. There's so many cuts available to you guys. I know there is, and you know it. I'm sorry, but there's certain things you gotta keep, and we appreciate you wanting to know what we think. But you're talking about people we see every day, or every year, or every time we do our car. And when she tells me that, personally, well, I got an issue. We all got an issue.
Let me respond to that. We needed her help.
I know, and she
That's
knew
why
that.
we asked her to come back. Simple as
Absolutely.
that.
But she jumped at it because she can't afford her own home
I
anymore.
understand.
Along with everyone in this room.
I understand.
So why are we doing this again?
Thank you for your comment.
Thanks.
Please.
Rachel Lagarde, 125 Wednesday Hill Road, Lee. I just want to speak up. I wasn't going to say anything, but because I just heard somebody say, everybody in this room. So I'm somebody in this room, and I'm really sad about the cuts. I'm really sad about the budget not passing, and I appreciate the select board asking for our input, and, you know, I'm really kind of bummed. I'm not going to be here next month when the deliberative session happens. I'd like to see the $400 restored to the budget. So I'm someone in this room, and I have an opinion too.
Thank you very much. Please.
Paul Guzowski, Lamprey Lane. Folks are worried if we're gonna repeat ourselves by going through the process that you're suggesting to May 9th and to a deliberative session and to a second vote. But in my opinion, what folks really should be worried about is the fact that this type of tight process is gonna keep happening to us. And in a state that is fifth per capita income, ranked fifth in the nation for per capita income, and in a state that overall tax burden is about 28th in the nation, a lot of people, maybe some in this room, have a lot of room to wiggle. My wife and I are on fixed incomes ourselves, okay, and we're not at our limit yet, but we're very frugal. This town is very frugal. We've been here for 40 years. We'll never be a native, but we've been here long enough to know, and we participate all the time in the meetings and the sessions, and we vote all the time, so we follow, okay? And I have a question for the board, and actually for others in attendance here. The state downshifted a lot of the burden to the towns for property tax, and property tax, we're under a lot of pressure because of the things the state did. They were under a lot of pressure because of the things that happened in Washington. So the burden is shifted onto us, and here we are looking at each other and, you know, in a gently predatory way, trying to figure this out. And if we really want to figure it out, we need to identify where the problem is. And the problem is the way New Hampshire taxes. And the unwillingness to shift the tax burden to where it belongs with people who really can afford more. And at the same time, to broaden the method of taxation. To burden us is noble in the sense that it gives us opportunity to figure it out ourselves. However, we're kind of wearing that out. And if you're worried about coming back on May 9th and the following day, you really ought to be worried what's going to keep happening to us if we don't change the way Concord behaves and the way Washington behaves. So if you could speak gently to the way that the burden from Washington shifted and the way Concord shifted and the way it's impacting some of the aspects of the budget you tried to develop in good faith, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can speak to that, Paul. I don't have a lot of precise numbers regarding downshifting. I will say that the number one biggest increase that we've seen in the budget is insurance. And health insurance in particular, although our other insurance numbers have all gone up as well, property and casualty, and workers' comp. But the biggest we had this year was a projected $250,000 increase in benefits and health insurance. And that is a direct result of what's happening with health insurance nationwide. I don't know what to expect necessarily from the state in terms of what we receive in blockade, that type of thing. I don't expect that we're going to receive any more than we have in prior years.
Charlie McLean, 51 Hardywood Road. I think what would be helpful here and what we're missing to make an informed decision is some comparative information. Every spring, every town in New Hampshire submits a budget, right? And all those budgets are public records, right? And at least some of those towns are comparable to us in size and makeup. If I were looking at this budget and there was a comparison to the average town of our size in New Hampshire or Stratford County or whatever, that would tell me something that would make me more informed and might make the decision process easier. For example, we're sitting right next to Newfields. If I found out tomorrow that we're paying 50% more for police services than Newfields, I would wonder why. And that would give me information that I need to make an informed decision. Similarly, if I found out we were paying 30% less for fire protection services, that would tell me something too, would give me information that we needed. And I think that information should be fairly readily available. You guys have quoted some other numbers that I had no idea about, but that obviously you came upon and were available to you. And I think the more information we have along those lines, the more we can make an informed decision, and the easier the voting process and the approval process would be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Elizabeth Reed, 23 Northside Road. You never see me at these meetings because I have a disability with the fluorescent lights. I get mini seizures. So this was a really important meeting for me to show up to. I voted, I vote every single time we have an election. I do my due diligence, I do research. I may not come to the meetings, but I research everything. That's just kind of who I am. I knew what I was voting for, and I knew I wanted not to vote for the current budget. And I feel a little insulted that people just assume because we don't go to meetings that we don't care, or that we're not concerned and we only show up after there's something that we're upset about. That's not always true. Many of us can't go to meetings. Many of us are stuck inside their homes. And it's difficult for us. You know, we pay for this all day tomorrow, just for being in here for 45 minutes to listen to what I can, because I'm gonna have to leave. But I think you need to just give a little compassion to those who can't make it, and don't just assume that we don't know what's going on and that we don't understand what we're voting for. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Howard Reed, 23 Northside. We've been talking about minutia. Do we take a little bit here, a little bit there? The problem is, we are being hammered from all sides, from feds, states, insurance, towns, everything. And people start forgetting the fact that, oh, it's other people's money. It's not a big deal. It's only a few percent here, a few percent there. Well, if I had a choice, I wouldn't have voted for the default. I would have voted for a 10% cut across the board. Why? Because everyone is suffering. Everyone is hurting financially. And it doesn't matter if you have enough to pay today or tomorrow. You're still taking money out of your pocket to have to deal with expenses all over the place. The idea of a town budget, the idea of the select people, is to be fiscally and trustarily responsible for other people's money. And sometimes we lose that. Sometimes we forget that that's what's the goal here. So when we're looking at it and, oh, we gotta take a percent here, a percent there. No, we have to take a serious look and it's like, yeah, this is gonna be painful, but it needs to be done. This is gonna hurt this one thing, but it needs to be done. Why? Because everyone is hurting. Everyone is reaching into their pockets and paying and paying and paying. I mean, you talk about the fact that health insurance is going up. It's not just for the town. My health insurance has gone up a lot. I'm spending a lot on stupid health things. We have pharmacies, pharmaceuticals who are getting thousands of dollars for an ounce of chemical. Thousands of dollars. Why? Because, oh, they have a patent. Everyone is hurting. So as we're looking at the budget, as we're contemplating things, let's remember, everyone is hurting. So, yeah, it's not gonna be fun, it's not gonna be easy, but it's something that really needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Please, way in the back.
Christopher Barcy, 56 Campground Road. I just have a question. Can I pay more than my minimum required property tax if I wanted to? Can I cut a check to the town?
Yes. The select board is legally able to accept gifts and donations. It wouldn't be credited to your tax account. It would go into the general fund of the town if it wasn't spent. Like the revenue that's left in the general fund at the end of every year, the select board has the ability to use that to reduce the tax rate when they set the tax rate in October or November.
So if there are people here who feel really strongly about raising our taxes, aren't they free then to offset people who don't want to pay or can't pay? Is that correct? I'm asking a question, it's not rhetorical.
Sure, I'll answer for, I can't answer for the board, I'll answer as town administrator. Certainly, if people wanted to come forward, and just as an aside, I will say that in light of some of the cuts proposed, we've had at least 2 individuals come forward and ask how they would go about funding a program.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd like to see more of that, more voluntary contributions.
Anybody who hasn't spoken yet at this point that wants to make a statement? Are you still interested in moving through a budget? I'm trying to assess the crowd out here.
No.
I
Sasha at 5 Cartland Road. I don't understand why we are voting on a new proposed budget. why can't we go with the default budget? So your new proposed budget, I believe, is $256,409 than the default budget. Why can't we go with the default budget? That's what we all voted on, right?
Right.
So how, I'm legally wondering how the town can do this.
State law?
Yeah, I can reply to that. The SB2 enabling statute in New Hampshire was specifically crafted with the ability for the select board to call one special meeting in the event that the operating budget didn't pass. The folks that developed the language for the SB2 process, the ballot process, put that in the enabling statute.
If I could just say, that's the kind of feedback that we're having this meeting to receive, right? I mean, it's valuable to say, that we're listening, we're taking notes, we've got the minutes, I mean, like, that's why we're here.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. I just wanted to point out that the ability of the board to do this is no surprise. It was in the warrant article, quote, "Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:3, 10 and Roman 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget." And so it's part of what everybody voted on, and you abstained.
Thank you. Please.
David Kane, 2229. I'd just like to thank all of you for going through this process and for volunteering your time for the town. It's a difficult task. I'd also just like to raise the subject of what going back to the default budget really means. If you have increases in insurance costs, those are not discretionary items. Those are insurance costs that you have to pay. It's unavoidable. Well, if you pay higher insurance costs, then something else has to give. That was in that default budget. And that's what I think we're here tonight to talk about, is what are the things that we had before that we were supporting even last year. We're going to have to cut those things that we had before. We're not increasing anything because we have less ability to maneuver when costs are imposed on us. And I want to thank you for going through this process.
We appreciate your comments, but you're absolutely right. I mean, what happens is that even with the default budget, it means we have to stay within those limits. But if costs rise because of insurance and other things that are mandated, it means we gotta take the money from someplace else. So we're gonna lose. Way in the back, please.
Catherine Coverdale, 9 Motley Falls Road. I just had a clarifying question because it seems like there's some confusion. Because we can't go back to the default budget because we also approved warrant articles, right? So is that, I'm kind of confused about that. Since the warrant articles were separate from.
They're two separate funds.
Right.
So the warrant articles are on their own independently. We can't do anything about those now. They've been passed. And the money will be spent in those particular directions.
Right.
Now, can we go back to a default budget after all of this discussion? You can increase the default budget by $1 and go back to the default budget. But then again, we deal with these increases that are required and mandated.
Okay. I'm still a little confused, so sorry if everybody else gets this and I don't, but, so the warrant articles, those are already factored into the default budget?
No.
No, they're separate.
Okay, that's what so that's why we cannot
The warrant
really
articles
go
are
back
like,
to the default
it's
budget
like
without moving things
you
around.
decide you're gonna specifically pay a car loan, and you like decide to put the money aside for the car loan, and it's only for the car loan. And then there's all your other household expenses. So our warrant articles are specifically for what the wording was, saving for fire equipment. And we can only use them for those things, like we can't take our car loan money and put it
Okay,
someplace.
that is what I think I understood, and that's why we need to figure out what else to shift around.
Right.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
No,
Appreciate it.
Thank you for answering the questions, remove some of that confusion. Yes, please.
Wendy Fogg, 179 Wednesday Hill Road. Just have a question, about something I just don't understand. Somebody before me talked about health insurance. I know for sure mine has gone up a lot, and I understand that for the town, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and you can't change what health insurance costs are. But I'm curious to know, of the healthcare costs, is it done by percentage, how much the town pays and how much the employee pays? And could that be a way, oh God, you're gonna hate me. Could that be a way to recoup some of this money that is gonna have to be found when we go back to the default, when we stay with the default budget?
That's the town administrator response.
We have a three-phase offering of health and dental insurance, and there are some ancillary benefits that go along with that. But the town pays for 100% of single employee individual plans. It's a little bit complicated. I may need the assistant town administrator to jump in. The employee, if you move to a two-person plan, the employee pays I think it's 25% of the additional cost for the two-person plan, and that happens again if you go to a family plan.
So that insurance is a great deal for the employees.
The-
I'd like to have that.
Can we hold the comments unless you want to be on the podium, please?
You want me back there, really?
I heard that. Comments? Andy, anything else?
I have nothing further to add.
Thank you at this point. Please.
Yeah, thank you. So if, Cynthia Missouri.
Thank you.
If this budget that you're proposing doesn't pass, then would you still have to take out more money to go to the, whatever number last year's budget was? And where would you make those cuts?
That's what this is, right?
Well, wait a minute, no, but like, this, I don't know, maybe I'm not like the.
So if we go back to the default budget,
Right, so you listed a whole bunch of cuts that you'd have to make to get to this number, which is higher than the default number, right?
Correct.
So what else would you have to cut?
Probably people, which means services. It would mean possibly not having a full-time police department, or a full-time fire department, or not having them double in previous week.
Actually, I think that last is probably not a good example, because the people are still in there regardless of whether it's open.
I think there's some savings that can be take place, because there's a guy that's a stand at the top and do certain things, and you can leave that guy. We don't have a plan.
So there's still a
Yeah.
whole lot, so before you get to, what is it, May 9th? Can you come up with those budget items that would, like those things that would go away, and be very specific about it?
well, obviously, after we hear a hearing at this point, we can understand what the people of Lee, not everybody, but a specific portion of the people of Lee are talking about what's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we will have to consider if we want to go deeper, which would mean what areas might have to be cut.
Right,
Which could
but
be
if-
people,
If it doesn't pass,
that's right.
then we would have a whole set of other cuts.
You would have to stay within that default,
Right.
we fall back to it. Yes.
So that's what
So you'd
I
like to
think
see
we
what
all
that
need
is.
to know.
I understand.
And the other thing is, maybe Tom can answer this, the police accreditation, you took money out of the budget for that.
Yes.
Does that mean that the police department won't be accredited, or, and how does that impact like grants that they get, and I don't know, what other impacts it has?
Well, the police chief is here if you want to make a comment, sir. You open the door.
Oh, no, I know, I'm serious, I mean, you know, like if they're cutting X amount from their budget,
Absolutely.
but they can't get grants.
So accreditation will not change how we operate day to day. We were accredited up until 2014.
Uh-huh.
Accreditation is a daunting task.
Yeah, I know.
It's expensive. We're already down one person as it is, so we don't have the personnel to keep up with it, nor the resources. You're probably looking at close to $10,000 a year to maintain accreditation, and it really does nothing other than we get a decal to put on the cruiser, and you know, it says, you know, if we say we're gonna do ABC, we prove we do ABC. We're already doing that.
Yeah, no,
We never changed from when we stopped accreditation back in 2015 until this day. We still operate the same way, we just don't have the moniker of being accredited.
Yeah, I didn't know if like there was certain grants that you couldn't apply.
No, we got almost $200,000 of grants within the last 2 years.
did a great job
So
on that.
without being accredited, but, you know, that's
Okay,
why it was easy to
thank you.
cut it out.
Thank you, chief, appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Any other comments or questions?
Lisa Bauer, 139 Winsdale Road. I'm just curious if there's any way to proceed without spending the $5,000 on the revote. I just don't, is there any other way to proceed without having the revote? That would be a $5,000 savings, just.
The select board could certainly decide not to proceed with the process and accept the default budget. If they move forward with asking the town to consider a revised budget, we would need to spend that money. There are very specific legal requirements you have to follow to have a town vote. The largest percentage of that cost is reprogramming the voting machines, providing handicapped access voting. These are fairly costly and mandated by the state, as well as purchase of ballots.
So wait, just to clarify, so we have, with the help of Annie and the department heads, identified $142,000 of potential cuts. The total difference is $399,000, so we're talking about like roughly $250,000 that we'd have to make up. And, you know, part of our thinking coming into this was that, you know, you can't, $5,000 here, $5,000 there isn't gonna do the job, right? I mean, it was either gonna be like, you know, start to look at things like, you know, personnel, right? Or, you know, that small amount of money wasn't gonna do the trick.
Thank you.
Just kind of a basic question.
Name?
Oh, sorry, Wendy Fogg, 179 Wednesday, like you forgot.
I remember.
Just a basic question. My understanding is that this all came about because some number of people came forward and said that they had felt that the wording, the language was unclear about the budget and the tax increase, and that created cause for concern. I'd like to know what that number of people was. How many people came forward and said that?
I wouldn't say that was the main
That's what we
reason.
were told.
I think, yeah, you know, the question of the language around the tax impact, it has been sort of, you know, confusing for a while, and there's, you know, it was a factor in the discussion that we had, but I think that, you know, what we said earlier in the meeting is still the case, which is that, you know, that $250,000 over and above what the department heads identified to cut, you know, we're talking about fewer police, right? Fewer firefighters, right? Which has a real, you might not see it right away, but, you know, if something bad happens,
you would see it, and we consider that rather serious, so we.
But that doesn't answer my question. So my question was that we were told that because there was a serious enough misunderstanding on the parts of some voters as to what they voted for, that the board had decided that the fair and right thing to do was this. So I'd like to know how many people said that. How many people came to you guys, some of you, all of you, one of you, and said, hey, you know, this, and this, and I think that was unfair. It should have been worded differently, first of all. So I'd like to know how many people did that. And secondly, this is just my personal feeling, but I kind of think you should have done better. There should have been more review of this to consider possibilities. And I think, Andy, you talked about this a little bit early on, about the different ways that things could be presented and still stay within the state law. So, I'd just like to know, you know, how many people said they didn't understand it and felt like that it was unfair because of that? And is that what really precipitated all of this? Or was it really that once the budget was voted down, you guys were like, oh my God, it got voted down, what are we gonna do? We gotta do something about this. So I'd like some clarification and some transparency. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Julie Van Gils, Director of the Library. I don't live in Lee, so don't shoot the messenger. In answer to Wendy's question, I can't count on as many hands and toes as I have the amount of residents that came into the library, and I'm in my office and I hear hundreds and hundreds of people every week come in that were confused by the wording that said, oh my God, we're gonna have an extra $5 and something on our taxes. They had put 2 and 2 together thinking it was $4 plus $5, whatever the actual numbers are. So I heard from many, many people in the town that were confused. Now, whether that understanding was misread, misled, there were many people in town, and I don't know if any of them are here tonight, but I can say that there was huge confusion on the numbers. Every warrant article was listed 19 cents, 16 cents, 15 cents, and the budget itself showed $5 X amount. They thought that was an additional to what they were already paying, not the 53 cents that it actually is.
Yeah.
So I can attest to the people that came into the library and stand up for those people and say, I heard the confusion, many, many, many people in town, and like I say, I don't live in town, so I'm completely not fighting for anyone here, but the people that did say that there was a lot of confusion in how it was posted.
Please, Town Administrator.
One of the things that I heard is very similar to what the librarian said. It came from the town clerk's office. The town clerk and the deputy town clerk both expressed the same message that the librarian just did. Personally, I probably heard from half a dozen people who expressed that concern. What concerned me most was 2 people that were actually town employees expressed that idea that the librarian just explained that their taxes were going to go up by $5 or $6 as opposed to whatever the cents that made the difference between. And that certainly caught my attention when people that were on the payroll were confused about how the tax rate impact was listed.
Mr. Tappan.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. I know that the select board saw this chart last meeting, but most of these people did not. And the chart shows that for 2017 to 2022, we had tax rate increases year on year. They range from actually a decrease of 22% to an increase of 3%. And then in 2023, we had an 8.8% increase in tax rate. Next year, a 9.1% increase in the tax rate, and then a 7.1% increase in the tax rate. Also, the vote in 2024 is the first year that we had the legislative body mandated tax impact figures on the ballot. And the voting on the budget had been running at around roughly 65% approval. And then in 2024, it dropped down to 51%, just barely passed. Went up a little bit the next year, and then this past voting, 47%. So I presented this chart to the select board last week, and looking at what is it that caused the change. And it wasn't just a change in the voting of the budget, the same thing happened with the average vote on the separate warrant articles. They went way down at the same time. There's two possible explanations. One of them is the default budget figures, and the other is the sharp increase in tax rate. So I see this as part of the exercise here is how much of it is because of tax rate increase and how much of it is because of those tax impact figures that are part of the ballot. And I also think it's very unfortunate that the state legislature in the legislation used the word impact, because it does make it sound like it's an increase, when really it's just a tax cost.
Thank you, Mr. Tappan.
And Mr. Tappan, can you remind me if those figures and the percent increases in that chart are just for the town, or do they also include the tax rate associated with the school budget?
This is the total tax rate that the residents saw. So that 8.8% in that year, 2023, more than half of the increase was because of an increase in the town budget. The next year, and the year after, 2024 and 2025, one of those years was entirely because of the school. In fact, town budget went down, but the school swamped that out. And then the other year, it's almost entirely because of the school. But the first time it was 98-cent increase in town out of $1.91 total.
That's I would give credit to Mr. Kozowski who came up and made this point, right? Last I checked, 66% of our tax burden in Lee is associated with the school district, which is important because New Hampshire is 50th out of 50 in the proportion of education funding that comes from the state. Nobody pays less than New Hampshire does for, that's what part of what we're kind of trying to deal with.
Certainly.
Just to pick up on that, I know I spoke with a resident on Friday who wanted to know why Lee's tax rate was so disproportionate compared to Madbury and Durham, given that we're all in the same school district. And I referred the resident to the tax breakdown for that. And using the equation that our school district uses, Durham has a local school rate of $10.79. Madbury has a local education tax rate of $11.77, and Lee has a rate of $18.29. That's part of that disproportion, and I will, not to jump on the school, but as a town administrator, it's very frustrating. The town tax rate went up 26 or 27 cents last year. The school district rate went up $1.66, $1.67. And you can see where the tax rate increase that is really affecting your tax bill comes from, and it's not from the town side.
Let me make a few general comments at this point. I think the board has heard a lot of information tonight, and it's really appreciated. I know we could have stayed with the default budget the way it was, but there was a lot of clattering out there that you heard some people present with respect to misunderstanding about the tax rate and the impact and the cost and the different functions. I think it is our responsibility as a board and town leaders at this point to, whenever these type of things occur, ask the questions why. Well, it was curious to me why all the warrants passed. And some of those warrants are quite hefty for some of the things that we're asking to do. And they're all going into different trusts so we can have the money to purchase these things down the road. But the operational budget did not pass at this point. So I think it's within our purview to ask that question, and that's what we're doing. Maybe in the end, we won't move forward. because maybe these considerations we heard tonight, or we will consider look at the impact that if we do decide to reduce personnel in certain departments, what the impact will be on the town of Lee. So it's extremely important for us to follow through and have these discussions. If it's the operational budget was voted down and we basically said, okay, it's fine, we'll just deal with it, I don't think it's prudent of the board at this point. We have to understand why these things occur. So I do appreciate Ms. Tappan making that presentation with respect to where the funds come from. And yes, the school district is quite costly, and it does affect the taxes associated with the town of Lee. So in the end, I'm not sure I want to proceed by going through every single line of the budget, because I don't think there's anything else we can learn. I think the real issues, and I think it's been said, is yes, this was easy pickings. I guess it's like a toothache. We nailed that tooth pretty good, I guess, because it's very irritating, and we heard that. The next thing is, if we really want to move forward on this, we'll have to stop looking at personnel. I've got a couple of comments, though. I appreciate everybody getting involved. This is tremendous to see. I don't take anything personally. I'm a university professor. Kids hate it when I give them an F, so I know exactly what it feels like. But there is still opportunity to be involved. You know, we do have an advisory budget committee. I don't think it's totally filled at this point. I think there's openings. We would love to have more of the public be more involved. The capital improvement plan committee, which is really a capital improvement equipment committee, has been having problems in the past, but we're trying to reformulate that. We will look at capital purchases in the town. Both of those committees are advisory to the board, and we really would appreciate if we get some volunteers. If you're interested, talk to the town administrator to see if we can get you on board to either the advisory budget committee or the capital improvement committee. So what I'd like to do at this point, unless the other board members have a comment, is just to see if anybody has any really burning comment they would like to make. If not, I will close the meeting. So is there any, do you have any comments at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
John, for your comments.
Please. So we'll take a couple more and then we'll close.
Megan Enos, 18 Lamprey Lane. I also work at the university. It's not a secret that the state doesn't give us much money either. But I also hold an administrative role in my department. And we, over the last couple of years, have had the dean come to us and say, the budget's decreasing, we have to make cuts. And we had an exercise about 1.5 years ago where we had to come back to him with what our department would look like with a 3% cut, a 5% cut, and a 7% cut. And I'm not recommending that the town goes through this exercise, but I do think it is, rather than asking us if it's okay if we nickel and dime smaller dollar amounts, I think it's incumbent upon all of you to come to us and say, this is exactly what it's going to look like with the default budget. This is where we're going to lose services because this is the amount of money that we have to pull back from that budget. And I think that information would be really helpful in saying, well, we don't want to lose that. This is what we're willing to vote for. Because at present, the default budget is what we should be working within.
Thank you very much for that comment. Anybody else that has not spoken yet? One last call. Okay, I'm closing the public hearing. I do appreciate it very much. I thank you for your comments. You can stay, we have a lot more business to deal with. I know those chairs are coming. You will.
This is the way this is I did.
Wellington, every year it's understand the small portion of the budget you're voting on.
Especially Eric.
I'm a slow reader, what can I say?
How are you?
Thanks. Well, nobody showed me.
Thought it was like 5 or something, and I had to read it several times, and I still wasn't sure.
The warrant article, the warrant article. You guys want to chat? And I'm not, oh, yes, of course, that's stupid. Eric, I just wanted to say hi.
You know, the rest of the way.
The rest of the meeting.
Yeah,
Don't worry about this,
Thank you very much. Next order of business. You have to close it.
We need a gavel.
Drama?
Do with that one?
There you go.
That's a weapon. It's for the rats.
Oh, now you broke something with it. Pieces rolling around.
All right, so we'll start with a well. We went out to bid early January, got no bids back. I got one person that sent back estimate in an email instead of a sealed bid, so I ignored it until I got no bids. And then decided that I would call around and get more estimates to go with the one that I had gotten. I was not able to get any. It's not something a lot of people seem like they really wanted to do. So what I ended up doing was calling Advanced Pump, which is a lead company up the street, and didn't tell them who I got an estimate from, and they had actually recommended this company. That's who they work with. I know that Cheryl, diagonally across the street from us, she paid a certain amount for her well. It was close to what the actual well cost was in this proposal, but she didn't have all the extra testing, pump test and everything else that we needed to do to make it a public water supply. So I guess I would recommend that we move forward with Skillings and Sons to start doing a public water supply in town center.
What's your best guess as to why nobody wanted to do it?
I got one person that responded back that said they do quality work, they will not do a municipal bid that would go with the low bidder, because that's not what they do. Called another company who either didn't answer or made up something that they wouldn't be able to get me an estimate for 2 weeks. It was not, this was probably the hardest bid I've ever done. I've never had one like this before.
I apologize for not being, I'm new, right?
Well, that's fine.
What's the well for? Like, it's for the town, but like, for what
The town
purpose?
center,
The library
Okay.
and Old Town Hall. The current well that is there is bad. It's putting out water you can't drink. Looks like Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee without all the filters that we added onto it. It's brown.
Nathan, where's your
Is that a
bottle?
that's a revenue
I
opportunity.
don't have my bottle with
It's
me.
mineral water.
The iron in it currently is 5 times the state limit. So it's pretty much only good for washing your hands, flushing the toilet.
And we're replacing the filters every,
3 or 4 months. And when they come out, there's just mud in the filters from the rust and the iron.
So I guess it's time to move forward. Any questions? Therefore, I move to grant the town administrator to enter into a contract with Skilling and Sons in the amount not to exceed $25,548.50 to drill a new well, set up a public water supply at Lee Town Center. Said funds to come from the town buildings capital reserve fund. Do I have a second?
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
The second one's the transfer station compactor repairs. A couple months ago, you approved us to reline the compactors at the transfer station. At the time, I had said there were unknowns on if the pistons were bad or not. 2 of the pistons were bad. One of them, we were about a quarter turn away from the nut falling off the gland inside, and that would have caused some pretty catastrophic issues. So this cost before is just the overage from the project. And then some of it was what we did to keep the cost down, i.e. the hydraulic hose and the hydraulic oil. Because if you don't change the hydraulic oil, you don't get the warranty on the reman pistons.
There I move to approve the repair work on the 2 transfer station compactors are presented in an amount not to exceed $8,445.55. Said funds to come from the transfer station equipment capital reserve fund. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And then the last one, so this has nothing to do with the operating budget paving going away. This is entirely extra, and it would have tried to come out of the trust fund, because it's not technically repaving. We're gonna, hopefully, if you say yes, grind 1,100 feet of Wiswall Road from the town line down to the bottom of the hill, all the way to the dirt, and then regrade it and start over. I know Mr. LaCourse probably remembers Randy doing this years and years and years ago. They used to do it all the time. He did such a good job, we haven't had to do it in a long time. This is one of the roads that he never got to. There's a lot of clay under it. It has really started to fall apart, especially with this past winter with the frost heaves that we had. The other reason we were gonna try to jump on it is Durham is doing their part of Wiswall Road, so we're saving a little bit of money by piggybacking off of their move-in. So they'll do our part at the same exact time they do theirs, if you decide to move forward.
Where did you say the money was coming from?
Highway, road, bridge.
Highway, road and bridge.
It's not in the CIP. We used money 3 years ago for this same type of thing on Wednesday Hill Road, but it was a lot more. This is a lot less.
This is not the highway equipment.
No.
Mr. Chapman, you got a comment?
Just point out that it is in the FPT.
It is.
Oh, it is?
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. The FPT has $200,000 for rehab of a half mile of road. This is a little less than half of a half mile of road. Well, a little more than half mile of road. A little more than a quarter mile of road. But the required calculated appropriation to that fund for the coming year was $234,000. But the select board only asked for, and the town approved, $140,000. So there was not enough for the full 200,000. Here you're only talking about 46.
For the- Okay. Move to grant the Department of Public Works Director permission to move forward with the presented project with Continental Paving and pay the invoice in amount not to exceed $46,044. Said funds to come from the Highway, Road, and Bridge Fund.
Second?
Comment, discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Town Administrator?
May I say one thing before,
Please.
in case Steve decides he wants to leave? I was, during the mayhem of everybody leaving, I was told that I may have misspoken. I was not suggesting that when the dump was open, or the transfer station was open, there would be the guy at the top of the wall. That is not what I was saying. I was saying if it was closed, we wouldn't need the guy on the top of the wall. So if anybody comes to you and says, she says we're getting rid of the guy on the top of the wall, that's not what I was saying in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, okay. Duly noted.
Please note that, because apparently there was some confusion. That was not what I was suggesting. I know that that's a nightmare.
Going to have a what at the top of the wall?
We have a gentleman at the top of the wall, right, who makes sure that people
yeah,
actually
okay.
put the trash in the right spot, which decreases the amount of contamination. And I know in the past, we've gotten rid of that person, and it's caused to a lot of contamination. So I was not suggesting we get rid of them. I was suggesting that if the dump was closed, that person would be there. So we'd be saving some money from that person not standing there, making sure people are doing their job. I was not suggesting we should eliminate that position. And apparently someone was confused.
I didn't hear you say the gentleman, I couldn't figure out where it was at the top of the wall.
There's a gentleman who
Yeah.
stands there and helps. He's very helpful as far as I understand. I don't actually go to the front, but it's not my job. That's someone else's job in my house. But my understanding is he's extremely helpful and he makes sure that the contamination is minimized.
And there's a lot of it.
What, contamination?
People putting things in the wrong bucket. I mean, he's helped me, but like the 3 times I've been, he helped me put in the right bucket. I'm special too.
Okay, I think we've been clarified.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
at this
appreciate
point.
that, Mr. LaGorge, thank you.
Town Administrator?
Yeah, the only order of business I have is to accept $500 of unanticipated funds from Health Trust for use in wellness programs.
We never refuse money, so I don't think that's an issue. Move to accept $500 received from the Health Trust for the campaigns within the wellness program and grant lead town employees permission to participate in said campaigns as presented by the wellness coordinator within the 2026 calendar year. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
And I forgot any miscellaneous things I might be bringing up tonight
Okay.
after the course of the meeting so far.
What happened? Wasn't that was an important meeting?
Yeah, it was.
Anything you want to remove from the consent agenda?
Nope.
Therefore, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I would note that we are redoing the investment policy because we have a new employee in the town clerk's office who will be carrying deposits to the bank, so. And Denise or I will notify Mr. Blake Butler tomorrow that he is now a budget committee member.
He's still here.
Nope. Couldn't see you around there.
Thank you.
I won't be notifying you tomorrow.
No, but you can go to the clerk's office on Wednesday or Friday this morning.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Well, thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. I'm working on getting us one more too.
It's two more spots, right? Were there 3 open?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
so.
Yep.
When will the meetings start?
They should start
ABC.
at the end of August.
But they usually start in September.
I'm gonna date this too.
Okay.
And there's one in there that was recommended not to be approved.
Yeah,
I just left it in there.
Thanks you for that.
Yeah, so nice, probably signed the wrong year.
Yeah, is there a possibility that there's some like,
That was looked at by the assessor and that's.
That was
with
the assessor's recommendation.
It said, he didn't meet the household income requirement.
Mhm. So you don't have to sign anything.
oh, okay.
I don't.
Showing it to us. Okay. Would you like to look at it apparently if you're not signed it?
No, I'm good.
I assume you already looked at it. I was really confused for a second because I know someone else with that name and I was very confused with what they were doing. I understand.
I thought that.
What are you mumbling?
I'm still at that, something.
Like that, huh?
That's, you missed one.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
surprised.
making all that mess there. Hold on, this one.
This cover is for,
I think it's-
Mr. Bellinger,
yeah.
and then this is
Okay,
Mr.
see,
Roy.
that's it.
Okay, any old business?
The only old business I would mention is not specifically listed here is what you want to do with the budget. If you have a final number you want me to put on the warrant article this evening. If not, we're going to have another meeting fairly soon to come up with that.
I don't think, we can't wait till the 27th because we need 14 days.
We need 14 clear days before the deliberative session to post
Okay.
what the revised budget number is, so.
Comments from the board?
I was taking notes, I thought that if you broke it up into just, the pro default budget commenters and pro let's think about this a little bit more commenters, it seemed about even to me. Is that your sense as well?
That is, I mean, I think some people were definitely louder.
Well, that's true.
As is their prerogative.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, being new to the board, I mean, just for myself, like, I feel like I need to sit down and, like one of the final commenters said, right? Well, what would this percent reduction mean? What would that percent reduction mean? know, like we identified the so-called low-hanging fruit.
Which was very,
Which was, just, we had some people kind of speak out against that as well, right, so.
Is next Monday a possibility then? Would that give us, that would give us more than enough time to,
Yeah, I think,
can we call them next, does it have to be a public hearing?
it does not have to be.
It could be a work session?
It's your meeting, the budget, yeah. Public is welcome to come watch you.
So what say ye that we do meet next Monday?
yeah, that works.
6 o'clock?
Yeah, I think
6
we-
to 8, something like that.
Let's
So
not have anything else on the agenda.
Yeah,
either.
that'll be a discussion of the budget.
Yeah.
So we'll do that next Monday.
I'm just doing.
And by right, I don't have to recognize the public at those meetings,
You do not?
so I have privilege, okay.
Ooh, that's cutting so. That's if I get it in the paper, if they'll let me get it in the paper by the, I can't count the 24th, and I can't count the 9th. If I can get it in the paper by the 24th that week, then we're okay.
We will push them before,
We'll push them.
we'll do it again.
So then I asked the board at this point is that, it was suggested, come back with, what you could see if you want to go. I mean, there's always the across the board, which I don't particularly like that. The other aspect is to target areas.
Yeah, I think that's preferred.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, and I suggest we get rid of, I think we talked about 2 weeks ago, getting rid of all non-essential overtime. And
Exactly.
another $20,000.
Yep, that would give you,
Which gives us down to what, 160?
$18,175.
Does that include all of the like taxes and stuff?
It does not include, well, yeah, it would.
Okay,
Actually,
like
yeah.
your number includes taxes that goes with it, auxiliary
No,
expenses.
it doesn't, but when you, that was just hourly, but when you take that 18,175 away, there's also gonna be ancillary reductions that I can calculate, because we're not gonna be paying retirement, we're not gonna be paying workers' comp.
Okay, so you bring that back to us, and then I guess the question is, what is the worst case? Which I think I've asked a couple times.
Yes, thank you.
What are we gonna do? What's the worst case? We need to go out to the brands and figure out,
I think if you stay with, and, I don't like to say this, but it's clearly the path that we would take. Worst case scenario, if you end up with a default and need to cut $400,000, you stay with the cuts that you've already identified, the 142, and I would move to the, essentially the worst health option that Health Trust offers, and do a little bit of tweaking around the edges, and that would be $400,000.
I mean, not to be crass, but like, we're talking about, you do that, and I think it's reasonable to expect that some folks may opt to work somewhere else.
I think particularly in fire and police, you might see that. We are by no means near the top of the pay scale for any of the employees in town, and we've used the health plan and benefits in particular to attract fire and police personnel.
Yeah.
so are there any other options? Like I think we've discussed some other options within certain departments. We talked about it in non-public, so I'm trying to be vague here. So can we also look at what
I think
that
we
option
can.
is?
Absolutely. I think we have
Can
to.
you bring that back to us next week, if possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to look at all options at this point.
Could you clarify, when you were just talking about the overtime, does that include highway?
That number did include highway.
So what are you gonna do if it snows?
Is plowing a different line, or does that come out of overtime?
It's,
A lot of it is overtime.
we have money in there for contractors, we have obviously the payroll, and then there is overtime.
Okay, find out,
10,000 of that is a line in highway for overtime.
okay, can we find out how much that is plowing, because obviously we need to plow the roads.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Or not, whatever.
So you
Get my
could,
snow dogs out.
that would knock your reduction down to, well, it's 20,000, so if you left the 10,000 in for highway.
And it's all plowing, okay. I thought most of
Not
it was
necessarily, but
winter.
I think you could certainly go back to the DPW director and say there is overtime money in there for plowing and not for mowing the cemetery or making sure Little River Park looks good or.
I would find it helpful to, the way that this budget spreadsheet is set out, it doesn't reach that level of granularity where I would have the information to enter into this conversation next week, so if there's any more detail that we can have, particularly like in, you know, the departments where we have significant people working, you know, just so I can see kind of whatever's prudent, right?
Yeah, I think probably the best way for me to do that is to go back and get the department head requests, which were these, you know, the numbers that are in the lines, but with an explanation of why they were looking for that.
Right. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Make sure you send it out to all of us.
Yes.
And just so I could, everybody, we're talking around a while back, this is before, well, this is 2021, but I remember we did a classification and compensation study in 2021, but we also did one before that as well. And does the board have this?
I just printed that copy for you. I can certainly get copies of that to the board. That was a study by MRI that was done, we got the completed result in October of 2021, and the board at the time decided not to follow the recommendations.
So I think you should have a copy of this, and for at least, you can at least read through it. You pay $10,000 for it, doesn't mean the board has to accept it. Obviously, the board at that time decided not to go in that direction.
It was from 2021.
2021, but at least it gives you some direction.
Yeah, it's super outdated. I mean, we could just look at kind of, you know, real versus, right, like
Yeah, just
inflation
cruise through it.
adjusted, right?
Yeah.
Like, just for a ballpark, but, you know, I think we should go in understanding that it's not.
Oh, of course, no, it's not something I recommended that just because it's stated here, we're gonna follow it.
Right.
It just provides more information, that's all.
Well, didn't it show that we were underpaying everybody?
Yes.
These things that show we underpaid everybody.
That was why it was shelved.
That's why it was shelved, yes.
That raised general angst among at least
Can you
two
find the
members.
one that was done before?
I should be able to, yes.
I'd
And
like
I
that
also
one
have
as
some
well.
tweaks that I made to that one, maybe 2 years ago.
Chief?
My sergeant just did a pretty comprehensive salary comparison. Did everything right down to shift differentials, differentials for FTO officers, by rank, by entry level, by top step, and I can provide that to Andy.
I would appreciate that.
Just finished it the other day.
As much as we can, we appreciate it.
That'd be really great, yeah, thank you.
I'll also ask the Barrington Town Administrator if I can share his, they typically do one every other year, have an up-to-date.
I'm sorry, that's a compensation study? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there any other business?
I have Dean updating, but we can do it next time if you want.
Is there any non-public?
Oh, that's what I meant.
That was the deed update.
Okay, we do that next time. Any other issues before this board? Move to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you for coming, we appreciate it. What do you think about my little ploy for the ABC?
I missed this one, sorry. This is the last one to the,
That's a breakaway. No, I meant for you.
Oh, yeah.
See you. Probably scratched up a good story. No, you break your chin, I'm gonna be able to coach damage.
we have wood behind us.
Right.
With bear and fox.
I think that was.
There were as many silent people there.
Oh, yes.
Conservative or silent.
I wish they would have spoken.
In the interest of it, it's back.
Or, you know, Brisbane.
She's up in the cat. Yeah. You should let me know, my kid name is Jack. Can you imagine?
His name was Jack.
Oh, no.
My kid started calling him Jack.
His,
I'm not even joking. That cat was in our house
Say anything
for
about
5 days. Lived in the barn. It was a cool freaking cat.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
They followed me around the field and like, yeah, he was like a little dog. You know, he, your pet.